Detective Comics 1085, Ram V writing with Stefano Raphael on the art.
Hmm.
Uh, this was pretty good. This
Yeah.
is, it's Batman trying to take control of the city again, sort of the tactics that he's using. We ended last issue with a cliffhanger of Catwoman going to see Joker, and I quite enjoyed this conversation. Not so much Joker putting a cat in a blender,
No, of course not.
but
But I do like so in the point of this conversation that they have, and right, Selena going to Joker to see kind of feel him out for what's been going on with Gotham, what he's been doing, and just her being able to call him out like he's not himself. Because when he says that joke in the punchline, she's like, "That wasn't funny," you know.
yeah, well,
And
it gets to the thing that I always like about this kind of moment
mhm,
when they play it is that she basically leans in and points out, you know, he's back.
yeah,
Like, Batman's back, and he's going to try and take on like what's changed the city and made it less
mhm,
funny, but he's probably going to fail again. Would maybe you would like to ensure that this
that
regime
he,
falls? Like it's just
uh-huh,
I love this idea of like encouraging Joker to like want to get back to the endless game with Batman, and to do
mhm,
so he has to kind of help out with this other threat that's possible. So
yeah.
admittedly, he's a bit of a wild chainsaw that you can't predict very well. So I mean, it could
Yeah,
end up badly for everyone. But
I mean,
I appreciate
yeah,
the intent.
yeah, I like that because they both, Batman and Oregon both represent a certain kind of order, right? So on the spectrum, I would say that as much as you see different versions of Batman, he's completely dictatorial. Ram V's Batman's not that, right? He cares very much about Gotham and about the order and preserving his whole sense of justice, right? And then you have the Orgums, which is much further down that spectrum, where they're essentially mind controlling people, right? They have that whole reality engine. They're making people think that Gotham is safer than it actually is, and there's still things going on in the shadows and under the seams, and the fact that Joker just lives to create chaos, and that it's much preferred. He fits in more with Batman's style than this Orgum, right?
Well,
Yeah.
this just plays into again something we've been saying since like maybe the first arc of this entire run, maybe the
Hmm.
second arc, is this idea with this new threat coming in that Batman ultimately is going to be helped by the other characters in Gotham,
Yeah.
meaning the villains, right? And we've already seen
Hmm.
examples of that, of some of the villains helping
Yeah.
Selina, rescue him from the hanging. And we see
Hmm.
more of it in this very issue where Batman goes to the
Hmm.
Maestro to like help with the music box thing. He goes to Mr. Freeze to get his help for his big plan to
Hmm.
try and defeat the Orgums. So it's playing throughout, and Joker, if anything, is the extreme end. I don't think Batman would ever choose to go to Joker,
Hmm.
and I think Selina knows that, which is why she's
Right.
doing it.
Hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
just playing into this idea that Gotham itself is not just Batman, it's all of these characters, and the Orgums could never have predicted how they were going to fight back against them as like a sort of outside virus. Like this is the antibodies of Gotham, all
Yeah.
whether or not they're all
That's
intentionally doing it in sync, they're going to
that's a
fight
perfect way
back.
to look at it, as that even though the reality engine's going on, these characters are still there. Joker's still there, but he's almost like subdued, and so it just needs something to get Gotham's system back up and running, right? Like the why can't I think of the immune system? There we go. Uh, gets the immune system up and going, and Selena kind of getting Joker and pointing him in a direction as a nice
I mean,
touch.
hell, even just to go with this metaphor, which I just brought this up because it felt fitting, but
Hmm.
now I'm looking at the two-page spread in the next couple
Hmm.
pages. Like Batman's suit in this issue, the bat symbol looks like blood, and all the veins
Hmm.
going out to the cape look like
Yeah.
like a bodily system, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's even an intentional. Maybe that's what put the idea in my head to
Yeah.
compare it to that in the
Yeah.
first place. Maybe Ramvi's
Well,
playing, you
yeah.
know.
Well, and I just love the idea too that like his version of this, ultimate order is, a form of gentrification, and how like Gotham is always going to push back against that because Gotham's almost its own wild self, and it's almost pushing against the reality engine. And is you can kind of Batman's tried to tame Gotham, but it showed him, like I'll still do what I want to do, and it's almost like Batman has has an agreement with it, whereas the Organs are just trying to force Gotham into submission. And now, because of Selina and the people that got him out, and Gordon, and now we'll see with Joker, it's allowed Batman to push back again against that.
Yeah. So we see more of the Organs basically discussing the fact that Batman is back. They don't understand how he was able to fight back against the Asthma. But, the mummy Organs going on about how, oh, he poisoned my son's brain, so I had to poison his body. But, do we have an indication here of who's in this, like coffin with the gold plating over it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so they're basically waiting for someone to wake up as part of the whole plan here. So
it's a little cosmic horror-y again, they're playing with people's minds while this thing slumbers and it's not quite ready, but they almost have the energy to awaken this. But yeah, it's also kind of, we know where with Ra's al Ghul and his, the whole Lazarus pit, it's kind of like that too. It's almost the opposite version of that, to where it's feeding off, whatever this is feeding off of energy versus, being submerged into a pit. So I don't know, maybe, I have no idea. Maybe it's like an Asthma given full form. I don't know.
Yeah. So further feed into something else we've been talking about since the start of this run is the idea of Gordon maybe filling more and more the role of Alfred. Batman brings Gordon to one of his current sort of mini bases that he's got in like an old power building or something like that. And he's like, hey, here's some computers, here's these maps of like this various, like, this is like the subway system, this is the tunnel system, this is like a heat map of Gotham and whatever. But Gordon points out that he seems spry, that he seems like he's in like good spirits, and Batman's effectively like reborn, from his time in the desert. Like he's come back focused, he's come back kind of accepting his like darker elements. And what's the phrase that he uses here? He's like, oh, like my ultimate goal here is now bigger than what my past like dictated. Like he's beyond just sort of like fighting for the fact that his parents got killed.
Yeah, it's now he is a sentinel for Gotham, right? He's fighting for his Gotham, not just his parents, which I think is a nice evolution of his character.
Yeah, and we actually get a big. There's nothing like a good big like Batman's come back to the city, so he's going to like be theatrical about it and show off a big bat symbol. Now we kind of already did it with the explosion in the building, that previous issue.
Yeah,
here,
he's gonna play the hits.
Yeah. Here, he ties a gas canister to the back of his motorbike, and he drives around, and then he sets it on fire, and would you believe it, he's been so skilled in his driving, he has made a giant bat logo now in fire on the ground. Fair enough. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I enjoy it. I get a pop out of it.
Yeah, there's about, for as dark as this book can be, Ram V still keeps a bit of a sense of humor. Like, going back to the scene before this with Gordon, where he brings him into this cave and he goes, not what I imagined. I thought it would all be bat themed cars and computers on the wall, which is typically, where Batman hangs out. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then here, just turning into the bat symbol on here. It's just a cool moment.
Yeah, anyway, this is all a distraction on the front of the Black Gate so he can get in and get to the Maestro. He wants the Maestro to understand the music box because it controls the Asmers. He wants to make a counter box that will put the Asmers back down and put them to sleep effectively. And the Maestro's like, I'm going deaf, and you want me to like reverse engineer this and like make a whole like melody that'll do that. And Batman basically just edges him on by saying, hey, like Beethoven was going deaf, but he made one of his most famous pieces. Yeah.
I love that. I love this. Like, well, yeah, like, just because you're deaf doesn't mean you can't work with music, my guy. Like take the challenge. And the guy's like, oh, I love a challenge. The Maestro's like, all right, you got me. You've talked me into it.
Yeah. So, and then he asks Gordon, like, hey, find me the coldest part of like the underground of the city. And sure enough, we cut straight to like what appears to be where Mr. Freeze is currently hanging out. So it makes sense. That's what he was looking for. They have a bit of a fight because Freeze just immediately tries to fire his ice gun at him. But Batman tricks him with his cape, is able to pin him down, and makes it clear that he wants help. And he's like, I promised I'd leave you alone, and I will, but they won't. We have to deal with this. And it goes back to that comparison that Gotham's his Nora, and, Freeze basically Like, okay, what do you need from me? You know, it's quite kind of a quick convincing. And I kind of appreciated this because we've set the groundwork. You know, we already had Freeze for a couple of issues, you know, an arc or two ago. You know, like I say, this issue is very much him going around people that aren't typically allies and making them allies because, again, Gotham as a whole is going to resist. Like, even if the regular people have been taken over and the reality engines kind of like brainwashed them enough that they're just kind of ignoring and like thinking everything's, you know, everything is awesome, right? Everything's fun when you're part of the team, yada, yada, yada. The idea that all of the more colorful parts of Gotham, the colorful people in Gotham, are getting ready to wage war back again. So the big cliffhanger though is that the Orgums, like obviously they're using the reality engine, but the people that they can't convert with that, because some people are more resistant, they want to rule them with fear rather than, you know, so they've been using the carrot for most people, but they want some stick, they want fear. And then in comes Jonathan Crane handcuffed, and they're going to use Scarecrow in some capacity. And given everything I've been saying about like all the villains like kind of independently essentially fighting back against this ultimately, and it being their own undoing, because they did, like the Orgums didn't predict that these people would all like battle against them. I feel like Scarecrow, when he has a bit of freedom at some point, is probably going to make a decision that's going to help everyone else out. Like, you know, he'll probably do whatever they ask of him at first, but I can see there being a moment later on where he chooses to like turn the fear on them, or ultimately, once again, another villain in Gotham is going to be part of the reason why their plan does not work.
Yeah, their order doesn't seem to fully work because everyone in Gotham has like this false sense of freedom, right? All the villains want to do it their way, you know, and that's what makes the Batman's Rogue Gallery work so well, right? Like, you know, Scarecrow and Joker, seemingly on the same side, have two different MOs and two different ways of going about things. And here it's, you know, Crane is still in chains and almost like a prisoner of theirs. So I can't imagine he's not going to, you know, first chance he gets to try to, you know, take this matter into his own hands and not do what the Orgums want, but you know, instead what he wants.
Yeah.
But I did like that reveal. We came around when they said fear, and it's him, and they have the, you know, the Tynan, you know, style from what was that event that they did?
Fear State.
Yeah, Fear State. His costume from Fear State, and it just it looks really good with the rest of the Orgums.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about this as well, is that it kind of feels like what they're doing with the reality engine's a more subtle version of what he did in Fear State, right? The idea that he has got a history of like affecting the entire city, and they're going to try and tap into that. And if he somehow turns fear gas onto them, will that just help Batman when Batman comes swooping in and he's a big scary bat, you know? Interesting pieces at play here, so it feels like another really solid chapter, sort of building to whatever this finale is going to be that we're getting in like September, October. I can't remember exactly when that last number like lands, but it's around there.
What I also, this feels like a follow-up from his Catwoman from Ram V as well, with, you know, him and what was it? Was it Alleytown was the name of the place where she took over all the crime and all of that stuff. It feels very much in that. It was, you know, her version of order, but unlike the Orgum, she was actually trying to make people's lives better, you know, through her being the boss there. So I do feel like this is just a continuation kind of those themes, and now it's just bigger because it's Gotham and it's Batman and this new group and playing with the reality engine and whatnot. So, but yeah, the art here, a lot of fun, like the splash pages, like when Batman comes through the wall that Freeze built when he gets his, he just looks completely menacing and almost scary. So I think that looks good. And then you already mentioned the motorcycle stuff. I think that's a lot of fun. And I do appreciate that they held back and it wasn't this big splash page with the burning bat again. It's just on the top of the page, you know, and it's just a piece of what's happening.
I think that was a choice they made because they'd already done the building thing the previous issue. So it's like, oh, this is diminishing returns because this isn't the big fist pump moment for the audience to say Batman's back and he's making a statement. This is just a distraction for this particular plan. So it shouldn't feel like as big of a deal, and it might have felt false if they'd done that. So I think that was a wise choice.
Yeah,
for sure.
Also, the way that they draw Batman when it's other people's point of view, his cape has these long tendrils to him. It's almost very shadow-like,
Mm.
or kind of out of ink, and it gives him an otherworldly presence, which is nice in a story like this.
Yeah, I mean, on the moment where he has the gas canister on the back of the
Hmm.
bike, I think that 2-page layout is really good because you get the big, horizontal panel up top where he's
Hmm.
sort of like jumping over the fence in the bike, and
Hmm.
then just like sort of the mist sort of around him when he's in shadow and silhouette when the guards are pointing their guns
Yeah.
at him. It's a really nice page, really nice sequence.
Hmm.
It makes you question, oh, what's he doing? Like you get excited, like, oh, what's he up to?
Hmm.
It's, a little bit of that. I think the winner though is that page where, because you get like just after the first scene with Joker and Catwoman, you get that 2-page. It's not quite a splash page because there's other panels on
Yeah.
it, but
Hmm.
the big central part of it's a big splash of him
Yeah.
in his new outfit. But the panels at the top of the page are him kind of like prepping that outfit.
Hmm.
He's wrapping like more traditional tape around his fists like a
Hmm.
boxer, getting ready to fight, and he's painting on the symbol, right? He's got the red paintbrush
Yeah.
out.
And it is very Barbados, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, the big bat figure, but yeah. And you can kind of see the veins going out to other parts of the cape, and
Yeah.
uh
That's
yeah,
what
it
I
looks really
think.
cool.
That's what I was saying earlier. It looks like veins. It looks like a blood
Hmm.
system of
Yeah.
some kind. So yeah, no, ours pretty solid throughout. Uh,
Mhm. Looking back at the guy in the gold, he almost looks like he has mummy wraps on him too. Um,
I took that as like metal. I
yeah,
can see
it
the
could be it too.
comparison though, but I took that
Yeah,
as like a metal sort of coating rather than like.
that's true too. It looks like in the Francis Ford Coppola at the beginning, you see Dracula's armor.
Mm,
Kind of has those kind of ridges too. So, but yeah, when I was thumbing through just now, it kind of looked like a mummy. But now that I stop and look at it, you're right. Looks more like folded metal.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So yeah, no, it's pretty good. There is a backup. I did not read it.
oh, I
Because
did.
Well, honestly, I think I incorrectly assumed it was like a part two, so like another
Yeah.
backup that I didn't read
Mm-mm.
because I recognized the art, but I think they just had the
Hmm.
same artist back to do more backups.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm not in love with this art. Is really the real reason why I didn't want to read
I
it.
it's I like it in a small dose like this. I don't know if I'd need a whole comic of it because I don't think it would be as consistent.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, so here this is a story of Freeze coming up to the surface to meet with a lawyer that he had got to know from his early days. And you find out that she's now a lobbyist and she works in Gotham, and she gets all these little things done. Like she's meeting with an alderman to make sure that um, it says, I just had dinner with an alderman. He's all in. One more vote and you can start putting up those eviction notices, right? And so Freeze comes to see her. Her name's Magda, and you find out that they had met because she was working as this up and coming lawyer, and she was fighting for like the rights of people in Gotham. And so, Freeze in his first appearance, he's using an ice cream truck and going by the name Mr. Zero. And so the cops have him surrounded. He manages to escape, and she lets him into her place where she's working. And he goes, well, why would you, let me in here? And she's like, well, look, Gotham cops aren't exactly the cleanest, and I don't know what you're up to, but you seem to have good intentions because, he wasn't trying to kill the cops as he's going. And he notices in her, on her bookshelf, there's a bunch of books that Nora had. And so it gives him like this little, connection. And she invites him to go to this like rally to protest police corruption. And he goes, you share, this kind of fire that my wife had. You remind me a lot of Nora. And so he's here to get some help about the stuff that's been going on with the Orgums. He's almost trying to use whatever resources she has to maybe shape things differently. And that leads to another flashback. Right after the cataclysm, he saves her from some of Black Mask's men, and that she's trying to do good help to get people organized. Almost like a mutual aid type thing. Freeze comes in and takes out Black Mask people, and they have this moment where she thanks him, and you didn't have to do this. And she goes, he tells her there's apartments over here. If she wants to stay and work out of kind of the area that he's made, he's all for it because he knows what she's about. And she says that she's glad to see him, but she's tired of Gotham. She's done trying to help, and that she's realized in all of her years working here now that, if you're going to work in Gotham, someone has to, have your back, and there has to be a reason for doing things. And you see Freeze get visibly like disappointed. And she says that, yeah, she's going to go to DC now, be a big time lobbyist, and she says it's a bear pit down there, but they're all young and I'm just tired. And he goes, oh, okay, see. She goes, so do you have that for me? And she wants like a serum that's going to make her more youthful. And so he writes this thing down. He goes, truthfully, if she had realized what I'd given her was a Rich's brew of household chemicals, she didn't let me know that she knew. And that when he was a kid, he used to play with his dad's matches, and all he could focus on was freezing that fire, right? Because there was that energy there, and he wanted to keep it and preserve it. And it's a lot similar to, that's why he, had that for Nora, and he saw this in Magda, and now that fire's gone. It's been beat out of her. And you see that whatever recipe he gave her has almost like an acid eaten through her face. And the story ends with, she had that fire, it went out, my machine can still save the others. And so, yeah, it ends with her on the couch looking like this sulfuric acid or whatever it was is eaten through her face. And yeah, very, very fun Freeze story. And I was wondering where it was going, because we know, I think Nora's back around operating, right, as Miss Freeze or whatever it was, Mrs. Freeze.
The last I remember, it's been a while.
Yeah. And so I was almost wondering if this was going to be his new fixation, this Magda, and he's actually wondering if he should use his power, for good. And then when you see that he's disappointed in her because she's essentially sold out. She's no longer that, person fighting for the rights of the people underneath her in Gotham. He's like, oh, well, purity doesn't last. So very good story. I thought the art was fine. It wasn't, great, but that last page, her fate would have been, I think, a lot more, it would have hit harder if we were up close to it instead of as far away. Or seeing what happened instead of us just seeing the after effects. But yeah, real solid story.
Yeah. I don't think we mentioned, by the way, Batman wants Freeze to help freeze the city. Well, that's why he goes to him. That's what part of his plan. I just wanted to mention that.
He wants an eternal winter, but I'm wondering if that also has to do with freezing the reality engine, and stopping.
Well, I think it's to do with interfering with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to mention it since it popped in. I never said what he was actually doing with Freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, in that case, we'll rate Detective Comics. What are you giving it, Matt?
I'm going to give this a solid 8.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the 8. I think it's a solid next chapter in the run. It's a series of smaller moments that I think play into the larger themes wonderfully. But I wouldn't say it's like a standout issue where I'm blown away by it from, as like its own sort of build to a payoff or anything like that.